Are you interested in co-warehousing? Could this be the next WeWork or common desk of industrial warehouse spacing? Watch this video to find out what co-warehousing is and how you can profit. Ron from Ronald, Rohde Law, and in this video we're going to talk about a hot new concept which is called co-warehousing. It's essentially taking that same shared office model made popular by WeWork and Common Desk and all of these Regis, trying to take office buildings and then sublease for very small spaces. What's happening is now we're seeing a variety of competitors in the space creating a shared warehouse space. Before we get into this, please smash that like button. It's free. It helps out the YouTube algorithm, and subscribe if you want more industrial commercial real estate content. Let's go. I think this is a really old idea, and people have been doing this with flex warehouse and other types of building types for a long time. And the general thesis is if you take a large space, that generally leases for the lowest amount per foot, and it has the least amount of work in terms of management and day-to-day operations, certainly turnover. When you start to subdivide, and the smaller the space that you subdivide, the higher rent per square foot you get to charge. But with that trade-off becomes more management work, more turnover, more issues, and you have vacancy risk. You go from either 100% occupied with a single tenant at maybe a lower rate, and then you have 80% occupancy with a blended rate of higher returns. In addition, you have the risk of different leases and different chargeback structures, caps on CAMs, and some of those tenants don't want to do a sophisticated triple net agreement. They're only going to want to sign a gross lease, which puts the investor and the landlord in a different risk category where they're trying to minimize their expenses and mitigate those costs while providing a fixed gross service lease. And I think it's it's an interesting idea in that a lot of the demand for warehousing has typically had a very high threshold, right? You're going to need a personal guarantee, you're going to need a minimum of 3 years lease agreement, and so it's generally a larger space, it's a high dollar commitment, and it costs a lot. So for a lot of these online retailers, I'm thinking it's a lot of apparel or Etsy type crafters, people who build custom, widgets in their garage, and they have grown that business to be fairly successful. Even if you're making, I would say, $1 million a year, you can't afford a lease if that's just your side hobby, or even if it's a full-time job. You're not going to be able to sign normal leases, and in this environment with competitive tenants, the landlords are not going to look at this kind of small business as a viable tenant. So I think there's generally demand. The question is, can you hustle and can you find the tenants that want to rent 500 square feet, 1,000 square feet of warehouse storage from you, and then fill up your large building, which you may have purchased vacant, or you may sublease from the landlord. Again, I think this is great, at least in the sense that it's a new industry, it's an unknown, it's very exciting. If you are out there and you have a connection to this type of tenant pool, you really have the world is your oyster in terms of how much money you can make by expanding this kind of co-warehousing, which, we've seen WeWork, we've seen VentureX. There's a lot of companies that have been very successful slicing up larger spaces and charging individually a much higher rate. So it makes sense that it would come to warehousing. There's a lot of demand for people that just need 1,000 square feet, 2,000 square feet, 5,000 square feet. Maybe 5,000, they're starting to sign their own lease on a small flex space. But essentially, this is what flex warehouse was. You had this flexible, low clear height office build out, and as landlords needed tenants and larger tenants would vacate, let's say a tenant vacated 10,000 square feet, if they're unable to fill that entire space, they were more inclined and more willing to cut that up into 2,500 square feet here, 1,000 square feet here, another 2,000 square foot here. And they haven't even filled up 10,000, but what is that? That's about 7,500 square feet. That is the essence of a lot of big box landlords. You always have that trade-off of larger tenant, larger space, and if you slice it up smaller, you have to increase your price per foot. So there's several competitors such as Saltbox. They provide a really fun lobby slash co-working area. So they actually have a shared office in addition to the shared warehousing space. You have ShedPoint, which is also trying to help people scale by starting with smaller lease agreements in the beginning. They tend to have a lot of amenities. They have a kitchen and a gym, meeting rooms. CubeWork is also another one. They have a lot of office space. I think this one is in 13 states. It's in Canada, Mexico, and China. And then finally, there's even ReadyWork. There's ReadyWork who helps people not only do the space, but they also provide logistics on some of the labor needs. So smash that like button if this is interesting to you. Subscribe for more industrial commercial real estate content, and we'll see you next time.